History is filled with stories that amaze, confuse, and leave us with more questions than answers. And sometimes a single photograph captures a moment so strange or mysterious that it seems almost impossible to explain. From legendary skyscraper lunches to unexplained lights in the sky, these photos aren't just rare, they're downright perplexing. So let's discuss 26 rare historical photos that scientists tried to bury. Number 26. Lunch in the sky. This legendary photo, lunch atop a skyscraper, was taken on September 20th, 1932, and shows 11 ironworkers casually sitting on a steel beam 850 feet above Manhattan during the construction of Rockefeller Center. The breathtaking image captures a moment of incredible bravery and maybe a little recklessness as these men dangle high above the city, eating lunch with nothing but open air beneath them. What's even more surprising, this wasn't just a candid moment. The photo was staged as part of a publicity campaign to promote the skyscraper's construction. It worked. The image has become one of the most iconic symbols of the grit and determination of the working class during the Great Depression. Who took the photo, though? That's still a mystery. Many thought it was shot by Lewis Hine, but evidence suggests Charles C. Ebbets might have been behind the camera, though other photographers were present that day too. The identities of the men in the image are also mostly unknown, with only a few definitively identified over the years. Number 25. Did they really kill a pterodactyl? An old photograph shows a group of men standing proudly with what looks like the body of a pterodactyl, a prehistoric flying creature that's supposed to have gone extinct millions of years ago. What makes it even stranger is the claim that this photo was taken during the American Civil War. Could it be real? Some people point to the resemblance between the creature in the photo and the long-extinct pterodactyls we see in museum exhibits. Others dismiss it as a clever hoax or even wartime propaganda meant to shock and awe. But for a moment, let's entertain the possibility. Could some prehistoric species have survived in hidden corners of the world, evading discovery until modern times? After all, the coelacanth, a fish thought to have been extinct for 66 million years, was found alive in the 20th century. Whether the photo is genuine or just a creative fabrication, it continues to spark debates about the line between history and myth. Number 24. Who was Edna Cintron? Imagine being on the 95th floor of the North Tower during the September 11th attacks. Amid the chaos, smoke, and unimaginable terror, there's a figure at the edge of a gaping hole caused by the plane's impact. That figure was Edna Cintron. You've probably seen the image. It's haunting and unforgettable. Edna appears to be waving for help, a solitary presence in a scene of devastation. But here's what makes her story so mysterious. How did she survive the initial collision? The impact obliterated the upper floors and engulfed them in flames, and the temperatures were so high that they melted steel. Yet, there she was, standing in plain view. Her story doesn't have all the answers, but it's one of those moments in history that makes you pause. Could there have been a pocket of safety, a stroke of luck amid disaster, or something else entirely? Number 23. A secret on the moon. Have you ever looked at the moon and thought about what secrets it might hold? Back in 1999, the Hubble Space Telescope captured an image that stirred up quite the buzz. This wasn't your ordinary picture of craters and shadows. It seemed to show something unusual, a pyramid-shaped structure. Yes, you read that right. NASA never officially released the photo, and that's where the mystery deepens. Why the secrecy? Was it just an optical illusion, a trick of light and shadow? Or could there be something more to it, something they didn't want us to see? For years, this photo has fueled countless conspiracy theories, hidden alien bases, lost civilizations. The lack of an official explanation only keeps the questions alive. One thing's for sure, the moon may be familiar, but it's far from boring. Number 22. A woman talking on a cell phone. Take a closer look at a peculiar moment captured in the 1928 film The Circus, directed by Charlie Chaplin. In one scene, a woman walks by holding an object to her ear, seemingly talking into it. At first glance, it doesn't sound odd until you remember this movie was filmed nearly a century ago, long before cell phones existed. In 2010, a filmmaker spotted this unusual detail and shared it with the world, sparking countless theories. Could she have been using a primitive hearing aid? Those were around back then, but they looked nothing like what she was holding. Some people have suggested this might even be evidence of time travel. The mystery doesn't end there. What exactly was in her hand? Why does her posture so closely mimic someone chatting on a cell phone? It's one of those quirky details that gets your mind spinning and leaves you wondering if history holds secrets far stranger than we imagine. Number 21. A modern dressed man. At first glance, it's just a typical group photo from the 1930s. A crowd stands by the beach in British Columbia, enjoying the sunshine, all dressed in the typical swimsuits and attire of that era. But if you let your eyes wander to the left side of the image, you'll notice something doesn't fit. There's a man wearing what looks like modern-day shorts and a t-shirt. Compared to everyone else, his outfit feels like it belongs in a completely different time. People have debated this photograph for years. Some argue it's simply a coincidence, a person ahead of their time with an unusual fashion sense. Others whisper about the possibility of time travel, suggesting this could be proof of someone who doesn't belong in the 1930s. No one knows for sure. Is it just a strange optical illusion, or could this be one of those moments where history and the impossible seem to overlap? Number 20. A ghostly presence. During World War I, a group of British Air Force pilots and mechanics posed for a routine photo. It should have been just another wartime snapshot. But when the picture was developed, something or someone unexpected appeared. In the background, among the rows of men, there's a faint face. Those who studied the photo recognized it as Freddie Jackson, a mechanic who had tragically died just 2 days earlier in a plane propeller accident. Was this just a coincidence, a simple trick of the light, or could it be something more? Many believe this photograph is evidence of Freddie's ghost, making one last appearance among his comrades. Others insist it must be a photographic anomaly, nothing more than a strange overlap during development. Whatever the explanation, the image leaves an eerie impression. Is it a case of a spirit refusing to leave his friends behind, or just a haunting quirk in an old photograph? Sometimes the simplest pictures raise the most fascinating questions. Number 19. A mysterious humanoid. A group of German hunters set up cameras in the forest expecting to capture typical wildlife, a deer grazing or perhaps a fox scurrying by. The cameras were motion sensitive, designed to snap photos whenever something moved, but when they checked the footage, they found something far from ordinary. One image showed a creature that sent shivers down their spines. It wasn't an animal anyone could easily identify. A humanoid figure appeared in the photo, crouched with glowing eyes, fixed on the darkness. What made it even stranger? The glowing eyes were on its back, not its face. Some skeptics say it might just be a trick of the light or a distorted reflection. Others, however, believe this could be evidence of something supernatural or an unknown being lurking in the forest. What kind of creature has glowing eyes in such a bizarre position? And why did it only appear in one photo? Number 18. UFO or mistake. In February 1942. Tensions were high in the United States just months after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Fear of enemy strikes hung in the air like a heavy fog. Then, one night in Los Angeles, alarms sounded and the Army swung into action. Searchlights tore across the night sky and anti-aircraft guns roared to life, firing over 1,400 shells at what they believed were enemy aircraft. But as hours passed, something strange happened. No planes were found. No debris fell to the ground. Nothing. Authorities later claimed it was all a radar error, perhaps triggered by nerves and inexperience. But witnesses told a different story. Many swore they saw unidentified objects in the sky, bright, hovering shapes that didn't resemble any aircraft they'd ever seen. Was this just a case of wartime jitters, or could it have been something more? To this day, the Battle of Los Angeles remains one of the most puzzling incidents in UFO lore. Number 17. The enigma of the Hessdalen lights. High up in Norway's Hessdalen Valley, a strange and beautiful phenomenon has puzzled scientists and locals for decades. Known as the Hessdalen lights, these glowing orbs of light have been reported since the 1930s. But what are they? The lights vary in size and color, sometimes appearing as soft white spheres, other times as vivid yellow or red. They move in unpredictable ways, hovering, darting across the valley, or even blinking out only to reappear moments later. Scientists have set up monitoring stations and conducted extensive research, yet the lights defy explanation. Are they caused by natural phenomena, like gases reacting with the atmosphere? Or could they be something else entirely, perhaps even a sign of advanced technology, or something beyond our comprehension? The Hessdalen lights aren't just a local curiosity. They've drawn global attention, with researchers and UFO enthusiasts flocking to the valley to witness the spectacle for themselves. But for all the cameras and instruments pointed at the sky, the lights remain an unsolved mystery. Number 16. The Last Photo and the Dyatlov Pass Mystery. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers lost their lives in the remote Ural Mountains under circumstances that remain unexplained to this day. Among the strange details surrounding their deaths is a photograph taken by one of the hikers, Yuri Krivonishchenko. The image, believed to be the last photo captured on his camera, shows an illuminated object. Some say it might have been taken inside the hiker's tent, showing light coming through a tear in the fabric. Others suggest it depicts something outside, a glowing figure or an unknown source of light in the darkness. What makes this photo so eerie is how it ties into the mystery of their deaths. The hikers were found with inexplicable injuries, scattered away from their torn tent, some wearing hardly any clothes despite the freezing temperatures. Theories range from a secret military experiment to a natural disaster and even extraterrestrial involvement. The photograph doesn't give clear answers, it only deepens the puzzle. Was it a clue to what scared the group so badly they fled their shelter in the dead of night? Or just an innocent, blurry image that has been over-analyzed for decades? This one photo keeps the Dyatlov Pass mystery alive, a chilling reminder of how some events may never fully be explained. Number 15. The Haunting Faces in the Sea. A routine maintenance task aboard the USNS Watertown took a tragic turn in 1945 when 2 crew members succumbed to toxic gas inhalation. The ship continued its voyage, but the crew's grief soon gave way to unease. Reports began surfacing of something unsettling: faces. The faces of the 2 deceased crew members, it was said, could be seen in the water beside the ship, not once or twice, but repeatedly, as if the spirits of the men were following the vessel across the vast sea. It wasn't just whispers among the crew. The sightings became so frequent that even the ship's captain took notice. Curious and perhaps skeptical, the captain decided to document the phenomenon. He took a photograph of the water, and what emerged in that image has baffled people for decades. There, seemingly rising from the sea, were the ghostly faces of the 2 lost crew members. The photo remains one of the most chilling examples of unexplained maritime mysteries. Was it a trick of the light, an illusion in the waves? Or could it be something more, a haunting reminder of lives tragically cut short? Whatever the explanation, the story lingers, as eerie and captivating as the ocean itself. Number 14. The controversial UFO photo. In the spring of 1976, a man named Billy Meyer stepped into the spotlight of UFO lore with a photo that would ignite fascination and controversy. Meyer, who lived in Switzerland, claimed to have captured an image of a disc-shaped object hovering in the sky. According to him, this wasn't just any flying saucer, it was an alien spacecraft piloted by an advanced race called the Plejarans, or Pleiadians. Meyer didn't stop at the photo. He said these beings had chosen him as a kind of messenger, tasked with delivering their warnings and teachings to humanity. His claims brought him both fame and scrutiny. For some, the photo was compelling evidence of extraterrestrial life. For others, it was an obvious hoax. Skeptics questioned the authenticity of Meyer's photographs, pointing to inconsistencies and even accusing him of creating elaborate models to stage the sightings. Yet, despite the criticism, his story remains one of the most talked about cases in UFO history. What makes Meyer's story so enduring? Is it the photo itself, the audacity of his claims, or humanity's unshakable desire to believe in something beyond our world? Get ready for today's mystic topic. What you see in this photo is not a scene from a science fiction movie. It's one of the most mysterious and controversial photos in history. A young boy is standing calmly next to strange creatures that look like dinosaurs, but scientists claim that this picture simply can't be real. Was this a forgotten experiment, a glimpse into a lost world, or something else entirely? Why would scientists want this photo buried? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to tag #MysticTopic. Number 13. Captain Jack Bonavita. In the early 1900s, America was full of excitement and opportunity. Circuses thrived and amazing crowds with daring acts. One of the bravest stars was Captain Jack Bonavita, a famous lion tamer known for his fearless performances. At Coney Island's famous Dreamland, which opened in 1904, thousands of spectators flocked to see his nerve-wracking performances. Jack Bonavita stepped into a steel cage with 27 lions, each one capable of tearing him apart in seconds. Yet he stood there calm, commanding, and in control. But it wasn't all applause and cheers. He survived over 50 attacks from the very animals he trained. In 1917, his luck ran out most unexpectedly. During a routine session, it wasn't a lion that ended his career, but a polar bear. The bear lashed out in an attack that Bonavita couldn't overcome. After years of narrowly escaping death, this final encounter proved to be his undoing. Number 12. Unforgettable picture of Tank Man. Let me show you one of the most unforgettable pictures of history. A lone man, unarmed, standing in front of a line of massive tanks. No weapons, no armor, just courage. This mysterious figure, now known as Tank Man, stopped a column of tanks in Beijing on June 5, 1989. It was the day after the Chinese government violently ended weeks of student protests in Tiananmen Square. The crackdown was brutal, with hundreds, maybe thousands of lives lost. But here was this man, blocking the tanks with nothing but his presence. The lead tank stopped, unwilling to run him over. And what did Tank Man do next? He climbed onto the tank. He even spoke to the soldiers inside, though what they said remains a mystery. The scene was caught on camera and shocked the world, becoming one of history's most powerful images. Yet in China, the story and the image are censored, wiped from public memory. Who was he? What happened to him? No one knows for sure. Some say he wasn't the only one to stand up that day, but his act of defiance stands out as a symbol of courage and resistance. Number 11. World's largest horse. There's a photo of a horse that leaves scientists scratching their heads, even decades after it was taken. This isn't just any horse, it's Brooklyn Supreme. Born in 1928, this red-roan Belgian stallion wasn't just large, he was colossal. His size was so extreme that many believe he might have been the largest horse to ever live. And while he wasn't officially the tallest, his sheer mass was unmatched, tipping the scales at an astonishing 3,200 pounds. Yes, you heard that right, over 1.4 tons. To give you a sense of his size, Brooklyn Supreme stood at a towering 19.2 hands high, about 6 feet 6 inches at the shoulder. His width was equally jaw-dropping, a staggering 10 feet 2 inches around. Brooklyn Supreme wasn't just famous for his size, he was a champion, winning grand champion titles at state fairs before his incredible growth made him a legend. Even with modern science, Brooklyn Supreme's immense size raises questions. How could a horse grow to such proportions? Was it genetics, environmental factors, or something we've yet to understand? To this day, his photo captivates and baffles, a reminder of how little we sometimes know about the natural world. Number 10. The Unmasked Warrior. This photo might stop you in your tracks. It's the face of Terry Sawchuk, one of hockey's greatest goalkeepers, and every scar tells a story. These aren't just marks of a tough game, they're reminders of a brutal era in hockey before goalies had protective masks. Over a career spanning 16 years in the National Hockey League, Sawchuk endured more than 400 stitches, each one a testament to his relentless determination and the dangers of the sport. But here's the thing, his face didn't always look like this. The scars came gradually, over years of hard-fought games. Some healed and faded, others remained visible, and this striking image is actually a recreation to show just how much punishment he took. And the scars in this photo, they don't even tell the full story. Terry Sawchuk endured relentless injuries, loss of arm function, a hunched back, and a crooked arm from rugby. Despite constant pain, he hid his struggles and kept playing, fearing weakness would end his career. This photo captures only a fragment of what Terry Sawchuk endured, both physically and emotionally. Number 9. soldiers resting amid chaos. War is often seen through dramatic battles and heroic charges, but sometimes the most striking moments are the quiet ones. This photo shows two American soldiers in the summer of 1944 catching a brief moment of sleep in a trench during Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Normandy. Think about it. These soldiers were part of one of the most critical operations of World War II, an effort that would ultimately lead to the liberation of Europe. And yet, here they are, lying in a trench, their rifles within reach, their bodies and minds desperate for rest. The trenches they sleep in, hastily dug and far from comfortable, were their only sanctuary. In this one captured moment, you can almost feel the weight of the war pressing down on them, and yet they sleep. Perhaps it's because they knew the fight wasn't over and they needed every ounce of strength for what lay ahead. Number 8. A chimp and a baby raised together. What happens when you raise a chimpanzee and a human child as siblings? Scientists Luella and Winthrop Kellogg brought a young chimpanzee named Gua into their home and raised her side by side with their infant son, Donald, as seen in this fascinating photo. For 9 months, this unusual arrangement played out, creating a family dynamic that blurred the lines between humans and animal, all while raising groundbreaking questions about development and behavior across species. What's fascinating is how quickly Gua adapted. At just over a year old, she was often ahead of Donald in certain tasks. The real turning point came with language. Donald, at 16 months, began forming words, while Gua struggled to make similar progress. Sadly, less than a year later, she passed away from pneumonia just after turning 3. Number 7. Georges Blind's mock execution. This photo is unforgettable. Georges Blind, a member of the French Resistance, stands before a German firing squad in October 1944 with a smile on his face. But here's the twist. It wasn't a real execution. The Germans staged this as a mock execution, hoping to break him and force him to reveal information. It didn't work. Georges stayed silent. Mock executions were psychological torture designed to terrify victims into submission. The suspense, the fear, was meant to destroy a person mentally without physical harm. But Georges Blind didn't flinch. Sadly, he was later sent to a concentration camp where he was executed in late November 1944. His courage in this moment, though, remains a powerful symbol of resistance and defiance. Number 6. The soldier who survived the impossible. This photo tells an incredible story. Jacob Miller, a Union soldier in the Civil War, survived what should have been a fatal wound, a musket ball to the forehead. The Battle of Chickamauga, fought on September 19, 1863, was a devastating Union defeat, and Miller was thought to be one of the countless casualties left on the battlefield. His unit had no choice but to retreat, leaving him for dead. But Jacob wasn't ready to give up. Hours later, he regained consciousness. Imagine waking up alone on a battlefield, wounded and surrounded by enemy forces. Despite a crushed skull and a dislocated eye, Miller refused to give up. Using a bandana to stop the bleeding and his rifle for support, he staggered back to his lines, barely recognizable to his own comrades. Even at the hospital, surgeons believed there was no hope and left him to die. But Jacob Miller defied all odds, living to tell his incredible tale of survival and resilience. Number 5. Dancing bears. This striking image captures one of the most unusual traditions in post-World War II Romania, using a bear to treat back pain. Yes, you're seeing it right. In 1946, Romani bear handlers known as the Ursari practiced this curious method. Their belief? The weight and movement of a trained bear stepping on a person's back could alleviate pain. For generations, they lived nomadically, earning their living by training bears to perform mesmerizing dances and tricks. These performances weren't just a spectacle, they symbolized a remarkable bond between humans and the wild, blending entertainment with deep-rooted tradition. In this photo, a bear dances atop a man, guided by its handler. These handlers were experts, passing down their craft for generations. The bears, often trained from a young age, became central to this fascinating cultural practice, which combined mysticism, folklore, and a belief in natural remedies. Number 4. Stagecoach Mary. Take a good look at this incredible image. This is Mary Fields, better known as Stagecoach Mary, a true legend of the American West. She wasn't just any mail carrier, she was the first black woman to hold a star route mail carrier contract in the United States, blazing trails both literally and figuratively in the late 19th century. Armed with a rifle and an unshakable determination, Mary became famous for her resilience and grit. She delivered mail in the wilds of Montana, braving harsh winters, treacherous terrain, and the ever-present threat of danger. Mary wasn't someone to mess with. Standing tall and fearless, she became a symbol of strength in a time when women, especially black women, faced immense challenges. Number 3. Handmade horror. This eerie photo takes us back to a Halloween celebration in the United States during the 1920s. Look closely at those bizarre, oversized masks and costumes, equal parts creepy and captivating. Back then, Halloween costumes weren't the polished, store-bought outfits we see today. They were handmade, often improvised, and far more sinister in appearance, creating an unsettling vibe that seems to leap straight out of a nightmare. In this image, you can see how the creative limitations of the time resulted in something truly otherworldly. With stitched-together fabrics, papier-mâché masks, and exaggerated features, these costumes pushed the boundaries of what spooky meant. But it wasn't just for fun. Halloween in the 1920s was steeped in mystery and superstition, and these unnerving disguises added to the atmosphere of mischief and fear. Number 2. Nicola Tesla's last known photo. Here's something fascinating. This is the last known photograph of Nikola Tesla, taken in 1943. It shows him sitting quietly in his room at the New Yorker Hotel, the place where he spent his final years. By this time, Tesla was no longer the celebrated inventor he once was, but his mind remained as brilliant as ever. What makes this photo so intriguing is how it captures the loneliness of a man who changed the world with his ideas. This image gives us a rare glimpse of the man behind the innovations, a brilliant yet isolated figure whose legacy still shapes our lives. Number 1. Croatian Catholic tattoos. Take a closer look at this fascinating tradition. Elderly women in Bosnia, photographed in the 1930s and 1940s, bearing intricate tattoos that tell a story of culture, faith, and identity. Known as sikanje or bokanje, these tattoos were a custom among Roman Catholic Croat teenagers in central Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in parts of Croatia like Dalmatia. But here's the twist. This practice dates back far earlier than Christianity itself, with roots tracing back to Illyrian times, long before the Slavs migrated to the Balkans. These tattoos weren't just art, they were symbols of survival, heritage, and devotion. Each design, carefully inked, carried meaning and purpose, connecting the wearer to centuries of tradition. This is more than just body art. It's a living reminder of resilience and cultural pride. These mysterious photos show us how much of history is still unknown. They make us curious and leave us asking, will we ever find out the full story behind these strange images?